So let's go ahead and let's get started. I am
All
going
right.
to introduce you to your host, Avi. And Avi is going to get you started with some real strong positive energy this morning, right? Avi?
Let's see what I can do. Good
Hey,
afternoon, everyone.
good afternoon.
Thank you. I am Avi Smith Rappaport, owner of We Care Computers. I called my company We Care Computers because we really do care. As a company that cares, oftentimes we do things that go above and beyond the call of duty. In light of COVID and everything else going on in our world, we know many people are in crisis. We felt it was a great idea to help people remember how to be happy and get happier. Happy people make more productive employees. Happy people make better spouses. Happy people make much better friends. Happy people also make our world a better place. I met JoAnna at another seminar she did over COVID during my American Cancer Society fundraiser, Real Men Wear Pink. I often do wear pink still. Well, always.
I think you are
uh,
wearing pink.
I instantly fell in love with her and her message and wanted everyone I know to hear her speak so they can get happier themselves. JoAnna Brandi is a certified chief happiness officer, a happiness coach, and specialist in creating customer loyalty and happiness. She's been in business for over 30 years and has worked with companies of all shapes and sizes. She is the author of 3 books on customer loyalty and staying positive, and is the creator of an online course for practicing positive leadership. She was formerly the director of direct marketing at CMP Media in New York, where she ran a multi-million-dollar division of the company. She was also the force behind the start of their world famous daycare center. She works with companies who want to energize, elevate, and empower their people to take exquisite care of their customers and their employees as a strategy to create lifetime value and profitability. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you all JoAnna Brandi.
Oh, thank you, Avi. Great job. Lots of energy in that, huh? Lots of energy. And I get really excited when I have the opportunity to talk to people because very few people know that about 20 years ago, a new science emerged. And that's the science of positive psychology, which is also known as the science of happiness, the science of what goes right, the science of high performance, and even the science of thrival. And I'm proud to say that I studied with Dr. Martin Seligman, who is the founding father of the field of positive psychology. Lovely story behind that whole thing. He was out in the garden with his daughter. He has 8 children, and he was out in the garden with his youngest daughter, who was 5 years old at the time. And he was weeding. And when Marty does something, he's extraordinarily focused. So when Marty weeds, he just weeds. And of course, the 5-year-old is out there throwing the leaves around and picking the weeds out, spinning around in circles and singing. And this annoyed him no end. So he yelled at her. And she got all of her back up into it. And she turned around and she said, "How come you're such a grouch?" And that propelled him into asking that question because he was a bit grouchy. And what he found out was that most of the literature in the very field that he wrote in and studied in was focused on taking people who had mental illness and bringing them to a state of normal. But there was very little literature and very little research on taking people that were normal and creating for them a robust sense of happiness and flourishing. And so positive psychology was born. As they began studying, we started amassing all of this really interesting data. Happy people have 65% more energy than unhappy ones. And so we begin to realize that people's emotions in business and, of course, outside of business really matter. Happy people are 31% more productive. They have 37% higher sales. They're 3 to 10 times more creative. Now, I work with a company that can measure happiness as a KPI, a key performance indicator. And what they have found is that companies that promote happiness, and it's a discipline, it's not just going out and making sure people are smiling. It's a discipline to create a happy culture. But those cultures show 300 to 400% more innovation. Now, who's succeeding in the COVID era? Those companies that are more innovative, that can put their creative hats on and get out there and make a change quickly. The nice thing about happiness, as you'll find out, is that you are 43% more adaptable to change when you are in a positive mood. It's easier to go with the flow when you're happy. You're 44% more engaged in your work when you are, again, experiencing positive emotions. Now, you'll notice that I don't use the word happiness all the time, because some people hear that and actually immediately dismiss it because it feels too fluffy. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's anything but fluffy. And there are lots of other words we can use. So you'll hear me using positive emotions and positivity interchangeably with the word happiness. Other research shows us that optimists live 7 to 9 years longer than pessimists. So what we know now is that positive emotions make us smarter. In the presence of positive emotions, our brains open up to something that's called the broaden and build response, so that we are able to see more of the issue we're dealing with, have a more holistic view of a situation, thereby creating vision and dialing up the learning centers in our brain, so we actually are smarter. They've done some tests on doctors. Doctors become 19% more accurate in their diagnoses when they're primed for a positive feeling before the evaluation. And how did they prime these doctors for a positive feeling? They gave them candy. So I'm going to suggest the next time you go to doctors, bring them a lollipop, and maybe you'll get a more accurate diagnosis. It makes us smarter because it causes chemicals to happen in our brain that increase our memory, even increase our ability to do complex analysis quicker. Positive emotions make us healthy because they help produce T cells in the body, and that actually builds our immune system. If there was ever a time in life when we wanted to have a strong immune system, it's about now. So positive emotions can make you healthier. Positive emotions make us more socially adept because people like us. People like people who are positive. People don't like the Debbie Downers and the people that are always looking at the negative side. So people have more fluidity in their social relationships, excuse me, when they are more positive. And it's now known that happiness actually makes us wealthier, because we find that people who are in that positive state attract other people in a positive state. And when they need something, they're able to share, they're able to refer, they're able to bring their friends, so to speak. And you are more likely to achieve the upper levels of your potential when you're in the process of experiencing positive emotions. We grow up believing that there are certain unalienable rights here in this country: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But I learned this from one of my teachers who was a cross-cultural anthropologist. In Thomas Jefferson's way, pursuit actually meant practice. So maybe what the founding fathers actually meant was we're not supposed to be chasing around after happiness. We're supposed to be practicing it. And happiness is a practice. It's a process, not a place. It's a habit, and a really good one to get into. It's a skill that we can learn and practice daily. For me, it's a work ethic, and I'll tell you why later. It's something that I have to put my mind to, focus on, and practice. Happiness is a choice that actually changes your brain over time. It's like a muscle that you exercise. So if you want to build a bicep, you need to work the bicep. You want to build more positivity into your life, you want to build that muscle. It doesn't just feel good, it's good for you. And it is known as the new productivity in the workplace. It's also a darn good competitive business strategy, because when you create that culture of happiness, of positivity at work, your people are more likely to go out of their way to take care of customers. They are more likely to do that going the extra mile behavior that everybody's looking for, because it puts them in the space where that's what emerges for them. They want to help other people. Happy people want to help other people be happy as well. So it's a very competitive business strategy. So happiness is about a frame, it's about a filter you put on things, asking the question, what's good? Now, all of us have been challenged over the last year to find what's good in this. But when I do workshops and when I work with people one-on-one, everybody knows how to do that. So that operating question of what's good will actually help move you and your team into a more positive space, thereby opening up all of the benefits of positivity. So let me explain. Happiness is not just a vague state of mind, as we believed for a long period of time. Happiness is a specific, measurable physical state of the body. There's distinct brain activity, distinct heart rhythms, and a distinct body chemistry. Dr. Candace Pert, unfortunately, she is deceased now, was the brilliant founder, this concept that there was not such a thing of a mind and a body, but we were actually an integrated mind-body system. And she, in her research, discovered that we have neuropeptides in the body, everywhere in our body, which means we're experiencing emotions everywhere, not just in our head. So happiness is not a state of mind. Happiness is actually a state of body mind. And if you've ever done that posture right there, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you can't do that if you're not thinking that, right? You fall right over unless your mind and body are completely together. Avi, you know that pose, right? Any of the balancing poses. You really have to work with both the body and the mind. So let me tell you how it works. Every time you have a feeling, you make a chemical. Thoughts and feelings of goodness create the chemicals of calm and turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system in our body that allows us to heal. But when we have thoughts and feelings of negativity, what we are creating is the chemicals of fear, and they turn on the sympathetic nervous system, which controls the fight or flight response, which we all know so much about. This is really important to understand right now, especially with what's going on these days. So when you go to the television or you turn on your computer and you click on a video and you begin watching the news, you can get yourself terribly depressed just watching the news. My first suggestion to you is that you limit your time watching the news, and many people feel they need to stay very informed, but it actually brings your immune system down. If you watch it for more than 20 minutes, it's actually going to lower your immune function. So it's important to have other sources. I'm not saying don't know what's going on in the world, because that's critical right now. I am saying don't allow yourself to terrorize yourself as you watch it. I spoke to a client of mine last night, and we haven't spoken for a while, and she told me that she had been watching what was going on at the Capitol, and she was so distressed that she just sat there and started to cry. That is a normal emotion, and that's fine. However, if you allow yourself to continue to watch it and continue to take in that energy, you'll continue to shut that immune system down. So we have to have a balance when we're looking at our need to know and how the media is delivered to us. Much better to read it than to watch it. Now, what happens as we have those thoughts of feelings of positivity or negativity, we have internal stories because every human being is a natural storyteller. So those internal stories are either going to spiral up into a better thought of a future or spiral down, which is what a lot of people are doing right now, only because they're unaware. My job, as I see it, is to help people become aware that where they put their attention is directly connected to how their body mind functions. So let's make sure that our stories spiral up instead of spiraling down. Now, I've got no beef with negative emotions, because negative emotions are important. They play an important role in our lives. There is a specific amount of negative emotion that we need, and a specific amount of positive emotion that we need. And I'm going to tell you that as we go along. But let's take a look at, what do negative emotions do for us? Well, first of all, they move us to change things. They enliven us. Very often they get us angry, and that anger pushes us to get something done. And I think there are lots of us that are feeling that way right now. But they also ground us in reality. So we can't go off into airy fairyland. They ground us, and they get us out of danger fast. That's our fight or flight response. They do focus our attention, and they're an integral part of the human experience, and they're necessary for our growth. So I don't want to give negative emotions a bad rap. I just want to give you a proportion that you can work with as a guideline. When we have too many negative emotions, that's when the stress happens. That's when the fight flight goes in. That's when we begin to release those cortisol compounds that circulate in our body and keep us from sleeping, and notably keep us from losing weight. But they affect our immunity. Negative emotions, like for instance, if you are angry about something and you stay in anger for more than 5 minutes, you could be shutting your immune system off for up to 6 hours. That's really significant. And if you do it over and over and over again, because the phone keeps buzzing every time a news account comes in, what you're doing is you're keeping yourself in a perpetual stress situation. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up. And the interesting thing that happens in that condition is that the neocortex, the front part of the brain, the part where your executive function lies, actually goes offline. And that's very specific, because if you were truly in mortal danger, you would need to see only part of the environment. You'd only need to be focused on the what's wrong and not on the what's right. That's why we want to flip that over. And then it's a contracting state. It's not an expansive state. So we don't want to spend too much time in negative emotions. It's simply not good for us. But what has control over that is how we explain the world to ourselves. So pessimists, when faced with something negative, sees it as permanent. Oh, this always happens. It happens every time. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. It's happening everywhere. An optimist, on the other hand, when faced with a negative emotion, or negative situation, actually sees it as temporary. It's specific to this space and this time, and they don't generalize it to everything. So there's a difference between an optimist and a pessimist. And Dr. Martin Seligman wrote a brilliant book years ago called Learned Optimism. I read that book. It's got to be close to 30 years ago, and discovered that I was actually not an optimist, which shocked me. It's a great book to read, but we know that we can change depending on where we put our attention and how we explain it to ourselves. So the pessimist sees difficulty in every opportunity, but the optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. So here's the deal. We have a happiness set point. Sonia Lyubomirsky, in her book, The How of Happiness, explains this really well. We actually have a happiness set point. It's like an emotional thermostat, just like our body, when it's well, wants to hover around 98.6. And when it goes up, we want to bring it down, right? This is an emotional thermostat that determines how much happiness you allow yourself. And if we get more than that, we adapt back to the normal level. So for instance, when you look for happiness out there, when you say to yourself, I'll be happy when I get a raise, I'll be happy when I get the new car, I'll be happy when I find those red shoes. I'll be happy when you say to yourself, I'll be happy when, and then you get that thing, yeah, you are happy when you get the new car. You are happy when you get the raise. But that happiness only lasts about 2 to 3 months max, because your adaptation response wants to come back in and put you back at the happiness level it's used to. Now, they've done a lot of research with lottery winners and people that come into large amounts of money very quickly. And what they have found is many of them get very unhappy. So it's not that, it's that other things happen in their life that supersede the fact that they have become wealthy. And it goes right back to their normal adaptation response. This also happens in people that have been in severe accidents, like car accidents. They find that within about a year, they settle into the same level of happiness as they had before. So that adaptation response, that thermostat, is going to keep your level steady unless you outsmart it. Now, here's the kicker. About 50% of your happiness is genetic in nature. And if you have more than 2 kids, or if you are a sibling, you've noticed this. Some babies are just born happy. Some babies are born cranky. Some babies are fussy. They don't sleep. Well, they get a different response from their parents. So they're not only just cranky, but they're getting a response from the parents that's less than ideal, because parents are tired. So Avi, do you have one of those? How many kids do you have, Avi? I see you popped on here.
We have 2 boys.
You have 2 boys. Are they different?
Yeah, they're a bit different. They're both fabulous, though.
That was the safe answer. Very good. Thank you. When I do this in front of it, the hard part about this is I'm used to seeing a lot of faces. And when I do this with a lot of people, I can see those faces change. I see big smiles come on people's faces when they say, oh, do you have a child that? So 50% of our happiness comes from genetic. I am not a genetically happy baby. So I have to work a little harder than most people. 10% of our happiness comes from our circumstances, where we live, how healthy we are, how much money we make, whether or not we're married, whether or not we have faith in something outside of ourselves, and notably, whether or not we have a strong social network. I have been peeved, to say the least, since they started talking about social distancing. As far as I'm concerned, the proper term is physical distancing. We're not trying to teach people to distance themselves socially. We want to keep them apart from each other so they don't spread germs. And I think it's an important distinction, don't you, Avi? It's an important distinction that when we keep saying social distance, social distance, social distance, I think we're pulling apart. And what we want to do is get socially connected using technology if we have to, however we do it, outdoors. I live in Florida, so we get a lot of outdoor activity here. But we don't want to keep drilling that into people's heads. So let's see if you can change your language around that and talk about physical distancing. 40% of our happiness comes from our habitual thoughts, feelings, and actions, things that are in our voluntary control. So what habits, thoughts, feelings, and actions are in your voluntary control? Avi, join me on this one. Maybe you'll be willing to share some of those, and maybe it's a good time to take a look at the chat box, because I'm going to ask people to pop in there.
To answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to answer that question for me? What habits, thoughts, feelings, and actions that are in your voluntary control do you practice? Because you're a very positive guy. I mean, do you get up in the morning and crank yourself up, or what do you do?
I do. It's hard work to to feel that way. And one of my biggest things in habits is movement.
Movement. Yep.
So yeah, moving my body, whether it's training, working out, whatever. That's one of my biggest ones. And being in nature is just magic. It just.
Well, now more than ever, they're doing so many studies about nature, how, because you're picking up the negative ions that are coming off the ocean or coming off the trees. And it's so funny because people say, well, wait a minute, how are negative ions going? We need those negative ions. Yes, we absolutely do. And exercise is more potent than any antidepressant drug on the market, according to Duke University. So movement is it's huge. Are there any other habits, thoughts, or feelings any of you have? Pop into
It says, it looks like Sherry wrote, she walks in the morning and enjoys the sunrises. Absolutely spectacular. Ooh, I can get
Gorgeous.
behind that.
Gorgeous. And Jill is trying to take little breaks for herself and walk around the house or work on a puzzle. That's such beautiful downtime for your brain, Jill. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Marva has a gratitude practice, so incredibly important. There's a whole study of just gratitude now. Oh, Jill says my wife and I actually had a living room dance party this weekend. It was awesome. Yes, yes,
That's
yes, yes.
fantastic.
Susan's
It's
out
great.
listening to the birds. Oh, that's such a beautiful practice, Susan, because what that does is it truly, when you're out in nature, it truly opens that brain. It truly opens it up. Music, consistently exercising, singing. Oh my gosh, singing. I try to sing at least 5 minutes every day. Singing builds the vagal nerve. Now, the vagal nerve in the body is actually the 10th cranial nerve. It's the only nerve that actually goes from the brain to all of the organs in your body. And humming or singing actually makes it stronger. So that's that's a little trick I use a lot.
Fabulous.
Being aware and grateful of positives in life and focusing my attention on those, praying to God for guidance and knowing it's going to be okay. Thank you, Andrea. That's wonderful. A lot of exercises here. And then apparently we have a happy lawyer in the crowd. That's fabulous.
That's always good.
Oh, a shepherd puppy. Oh my gosh, playing with animals. Another thing that you can do. And then there are all kinds of other things like buy inspirational books, listen to inspirational music, listen to inspirational talks. There are tons of people on TED Talks and things like that. How can you create those feelings deliberately? Avi mentioned nature. One of the strongest positive emotions there is awe. And we most often feel awe when out in nature, or playing with a baby, being around little kids. I live near the ocean, and it never ceases to amaze me from day to day to day to day to day. It's never the same. We rarely get the same ocean 2 days in a row. And that puts me in a state of awe. So put yourself into situations where you can look for, I see the word beauty, listen to music, things that you have control over. Make yourself a list of the kinds of things that make you happy and talk about that with your friends. Get on a Zoom call and ask other people what are the habits, thoughts, and feelings that are in their voluntary control that they exercise on a daily basis. And maybe some of theirs will become some of yours. Now, science tells us that certain activities practiced with intention and attention can actually alter that happiness set point. Building those new habits can alter your happiness set point. Exercising, meditating, those things actually alter the set point. So you may go off in a negative direction, but here's the point. You come back to positivity quicker. It's not like I don't fall. It's that I just get up quicker. So here are lots of other positive emotions. So if you happen to be a person that doesn't like the happy word, look at all the other kinds of feelings that you can have that will put your body into that state of positive emotion. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, who is another one of my teachers, has discovered that there's a tipping point between the feelings of languishing and flourishing. And that tipping point says we need 3 times more positivity than negativity. But one of the reasons we do need that is because negative emotions are like Velcro, according to Rick Hansen, who is a PhD, a brain researcher, and among a number of other things. And he's great at coming up with these little analogies that can help us understand this better. Negative emotions are like Velcro, that stick. Positive emotions are like Teflon. They slip off, the positive emotions slip off easily. So what we need to do is balance them. But the balance is not one-to-one. For high performance, a high performance life, a high performance job, and a high performance marriage, you need 5-to-1. 5 times more: acknowledgement, affirmation, praise, goodwill, recognition, compliments, focusing on people's strengths, focusing on your strengths. 5 times more the good stuff than the bad stuff, the sarcasm and criticism and cynicism. And if you're a leader, the corrective actions related to weakness that many people call constructive criticism. Criticism is criticism. It is possible to give constructive feedback in the context of what someone's strengths are. So we need 5 times more questions focused on what's strong rather than on what's wrong. 5 times more focused on the what's right in our lives and what we want to create rather than on what needs to be fixed and what you don't want. Happy marriages have a 5-to-1 ratio as well, according to Dr. John Gottman and his wife, who've been studying happy and unhappy marriages for 40 years. So researchers in different parts of the landscape are discovering the same thing, is that the human system, oh, there are those eggs, the human system works best when it's positive 5 times more than it's negative. So put more positivity in your life and bring it to all your activities. And there's a 20-second rule as far as I'm concerned. You know, we look outside, we go, oh, nice day. You know, we don't spend a lot of time focusing on it. Spend 20 seconds focusing on a specific positive emotion, and it gives it time to sink in so it's not slipping off like Teflon. And that's how you train your brain to be happier, because neurons that fire together wire together. So the more you do about this, the more you are weaving more neural pathways, strong neural pathways in your brain. And when something negative hits you, you can bounce from it quicker. So here's one way I teach people to practice this. Do an appreciation audit. 3 to 5 times during the day, stop what you're doing, think about, and then write down 3 to 5 things you appreciate about your work, about your day, about your family, about your activities. Now, when you do this, I always recommend that people breathe deeply from their heart space. Do that right now. And if you take your hand and put it on your heart, you are starting the flow of oxytocin in your body. Remember, what we think about causes a chemical to happen in your body. Yeah, Avi, take a hand and put it right on your heart center, and that's gonna actually start the flow of some good chemicals for you. And the chemicals we want to get more of are oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine and endorphins. And as we begin to create this chemical change in our body, we feel better and it becomes easier to see the good. That's why this is a practice. When you do this over time, and those of you with gratitude journals that are doing them sincerely and with great focus and not just, jotting down a couple things quickly, you're going to find your capacity for joy and noticing what is good expands. It's a great way to build the muscle. We want to remember that negative emotions shut our immune systems down for up to 6 hours, and positive emotions build those immune systems for up to 6 hours. So it's your choice. It's your choice. Want to build your immune system every day, spend more time in positivity. And since emotions are contagious, since emotions are the core of our motivation, we want to make sure that we're spreading some of the good stuff. The vibe of appreciation is different than the vibe of frustration. I study with HeartMath out in California. And I learned years ago when I started with them that you can change your heart rate variability by putting a hand on your heart, by breathing deeply in and out as if you could breathe in and out of your heart. And within a very short period of time, less than a minute, if you're focused on it, you can change that crinkly, staticky frustration vibe into the vibe of appreciation. Now that's important because we have an electromagnetic field around our body, and other people can feel what we are feeling. Emotions are contagious. They are contagious. But what scientists have found is that the electromagnetic field of the heart is the most powerful electromagnetic field in the whole body, 5,000 times more powerful than the electromagnetic field in the brain. So we want to get those good feelings down into our heart so they can spread out to others. So I've got a question for you. What are you broadcasting? What are you broadcasting? Are you broadcasting the positive emotions, or are you broadcasting the less than positive emotions? So here's another practice for you. Now, I teach this to CEOs. I teach this to customer service people. I teach this to salespeople, because a salesperson who is sitting in a car ready to walk in and talk to a client and ask them to sign up or, buy something from them, or a nonprofit person that's going in for the big ask, gets a little nervous sitting in that car. Will the client respond to me? Will the client say yes? What happens? And that's just the normal way your brain's going to go. What happens if they don't? So before you are about to walk into a room or serve a meal to your family or have a meeting with your boss or have a meeting with your staff, check your state. What are you thinking about? Is it positive or negative? Is it optimistic or pessimistic? You see, we are either energy gaining or energy draining. So if we are, I'm sure you've heard the word emotional vampire. Those are energy draining people. We want to be energy gaining people. We want to be able to gain more of that positive energy, and we want to spread that positive energy, or at least I'm making that assumption. So you're broadcasting your emotions, even if you don't know it. So become aware of it. The very first thing I teach positive leaders is notice what you notice. Where is your attention going? And can you turn the dial to a more uplifting, optimistic channel? And some of you already have this practice, one of my favorites. Keep a journal and write down the things you are grateful for daily. And when you do that, make sure you're feeling them, not just writing them. Because sometimes we can make a long list of all the things we're grateful for, but we haven't felt them. So the important thing here is to feel them as you write them. Feel the gratitude. Another great practice is sending an appreciation email every morning to someone in your office, to a client, to your boss, to your friends, to your kids, doesn't matter. Just send an email telling someone why you appreciate them. And this is writing a gratitude letter is something we learned when I first studied happiness over 16 years ago. Back then, it was a little bit different because you could go and talk to people in person. The idea with a gratitude letter is to find someone who's played an important role in your life and who you've not yet thanked for it, or haven't thanked enough, and write them a gratitude letter and then go deliver it in person. Well, of course, now it's going to look a little bit different, but write a gratitude letter to someone that's impacted your life and send it to them. And if you're sending it to them in the mail, arrange to be on a Zoom call or a FaceTime with them so that you can see their face when you begin talking about it. Start telling people what you appreciate about them and be very specific. We want you to outsmart your happiness set point. So work on that 40%, the habits, the actions, and attitudes, and take a look at the 5 pillars of well-being. If we ever get the opportunity to go through this again, we'll go through them a little bit more thoroughly. But basically, the 5 pillars of well-being are pleasure and positive emotion, engagement, meaning you lose track of time and get absorbed in your work or your play, relationship, healthy relationships, meaning really feeling like your life is connected to something outside yourself, and achievement. And so a permanent practice would simply look this way: to answer questions like, what gives me pleasure? What are my strengths and how can I use them more often? Where are my enriching relationships and how can I make them richer? What gives my life and work meaning? And what are my 3 most important goals right now? So I believe there's a return on happiness. And I'm guessing that if I asked you that question, you would find that there are many returns on happiness in your life, in your business, with your family, friends, with your clients, with your coworkers. There's a huge return on happiness in all of those areas. As far as the workplace goes, if you are interested in knowing more about how to make your business a happier place, you can go to returnonhappiness.com/happyplace. And I believe this to be true. This was first said by Max Planck, who's sort of the father of quantum physics. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So we have some questions, and then I'll turn it back over to Avi. Let's take a look here. Avi, do we have any questions in that? Let's open that chat box over here. Oh, I see lots of stuff going on here. We've got recommendations. I use Insight Timer, Kevin. That is a great one. And did I see our fundraiser posted in here somewhere? Avi, you want to give us the how people can get to our GoFundMe page to get the computers in the hand of kids, or can you type it? I'll tell you what. Can you type it into the chat box?
Absolutely. It looks like Jill helped us out with that. So that's posted right there. Fabulous. Thank you. That's phenomenal. Oh, and it looks like Leanne has a question. Any suggestions on how to guide teenagers on more positive thinking and acting?
The same way. The same way you guide them. I find that asking questions is a really good way to do that. So if someone's, let's say, complaining about something that's going on in their life, listen to them. And then maybe ask the question, well, what's good about that? Or can you find something positive in that? It's the constant repetition that there's good everywhere. So find a couple of questions that you can use. I used to have an issue with my mom, when she got elderly, is she really liked to focus on the negative. So I would give her time to vent because I discovered that was important. And then I would say, okay, so that's what went wrong with your day. Now, tell me 3 good things that happened to you today. And she'd shift immediately. The practice of doing that with your family at night is great, sitting around the table and saying, what are you most proud of today? I would use that technique rather than saying, what'd you do at school today? Because when people are looking what they're proud of, they're looking at their strengths. And in teenagers, they're emerging strengths. So you want to keep focusing them on their strengths. Yes, Yes. Dana asked if the slides are available. Of course, Avi has a PDF and we can get that PDF to you. And we thought people might want them. So yes, of course.
Yes, we can get that out. And I think we'll also be able to post the session in case someone wants to watch it again or remember parts of it. So we'll send that out as a follow-up.
Yeah, it takes us a few hours for a session of this length to load on, and then we should have it by this afternoon. Absolutely. Other questions before we go on to Avi has a special offer for you. Okay, any other questions? Let's just take a quick look at the Q&A box. Oh, my bar is not working.
I didn't say anything in the Q&A box.
Yeah, there's nothing.
I think people are just posting in the chat. That everyone feels very loving here.
I love it. I love it. That's wonderful. That's
our kind of crowd.
That's wonderful. So learn some good questions because, yes, what about people dealing with cancer? That's a larger question, Elaine. I'll tell you what, I'm JoAnna at returnonhappiness.com. I'll show that in a second. That's a larger question, and I am happy to deal with that. There are lots and lots and lots of wonderful resources, people dealing with cancer. I was first turned on to Dr. Bernie Siegel. That's where my learning started with all of this, and he's got some great stuff, and we can get that back to you. I am often misunderstood because I refuse to buy into the drama. Yeah. Well, Dana, sometimes our truth is different than other people's truth. So again, questions are helpful because if you can flip someone over with a question, it may shift them from one side of the brain to the other. Happiness is actually resides when we are having a positive emotion. It actually resides in the left prefrontal cortex. So what we want to do is shift them over from the right where they are, if they're in the drama, to the left. So questions is the way to do that. Okay, I see some people are leaving, so let's Jill's got some stuff here. Yes, well, we can help. Cancer.org is great. Contacting Jill is great. She works for the Cancer Association, so we can get that. So let's just click away here. If you're interested in my leadership course, it's at positiveenergizer.com, because that's what we do. And my contact information is here. And of course, that will be on the PDF. But I very much want to get this. Come on, I'm clicking here. There we go. Why don't you go ahead, Avi, and tell people this? I love this offer that you have for them.
Yes, we're offering a free technology review here. You can see the information here. Just give us a call at the office or via email. You see right there, 860-836-4191 or info@wecarecomputers.com. We can discuss your needs for your business and see how we can help you out there. And I also wanted to say, was that fabulous? I can hear everyone in the background saying how fabulous. Well, that was amazing, JoAnna. You never cease to amaze me, and this was just fantastic. And I just want to make one request before you all get up from your desks. Please take a very quick moment to fill out the survey that's going to magically appear when you log out of this. And my other request is that you go out there and make this world a better place. You have the power to. You have a lot of tools here. You have all of JoAnna's contact information for future follow-ups. Go make it happen. It's up to you.
Yeah, and can we just make sure we post the link to donate for the kids, for the computer link. There, GoFundMe. There we go. Thank you so much.
What
Beautiful.
a good team. I love them.
Jill is reading my mind. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Avi, for arranging this, says Dana. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming,
Avi,
JoAnna. That was wonderful.
Thank you so much. And I'll let you have the last couple of words as we send people off to fill out the survey, donate to the kids, and have some lunch.
Do it. There's a lot of need out there. Go make it happen, everyone, and just be happy out there. We love you, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Cheers.
Bye.